I'd like to go ahead and introduce the speaker, if you will. I met this fellow when I was in treatment. He don't know that, but I started playing his tapes early on, and I didn't know who Buck Melton was. And I'm going to use his name, full name, but he put it down everywhere, so I feel free to do that. But I met and listened to a lot of Buck tapes when I was in treatment, and got to loving him, and then all of a sudden, at Fellowship by the Sea, I met Buck and Miss Virginia. They were taping, I think, down there. Oh, that's been a long time ago. And I got to meet him. And then as time went on, I was in and out with Buck just when he'd come and visit, or I'd see him at a retreat. And then several years ago, I had the opportunity to start going up to Blackstone, and there was Buck. And I had the opportunity to sit down in a smoke-filled room and drinking coffee. And he and I sat down for 2 hours, I guess, and just chatted. And I felt like I got to know Buck intimately because he told me his story and a lot of other stories, and we laughed and we shared a whole lot of things, and I just feel like I've known him all my life. Since then, he's been here a couple of times. He spoke for us, and when we started talking about finding a speaker for our Alcohol-Free Founders Day, I said, I got one. And I didn't have any disagreement at all over that. And it's a great pleasure for me to have our Founders Day speaker, Buck M. from Charlotte, North Carolina. By the way, y'all listen over here in the Amen corner. He brought his own damn gang here.
I am an alcoholic. My name's Buck Melton. Thank God there's a lot of people stayed here. I figured that eating first, there wouldn't be nobody here for the meeting. Yeah, it is good to be here. I got my old polygraph in place. You know, just relax for a little while. Got nothing to do. I've been give us sobriety days. I've been sober 24 days, 9 months, and 34 years by the grace of God, because this thing works. And it really works. And I was looking at the 4 absolutes up here, and I was kind of raised on them. I had a sponsor got sober up in Cleveland, and by the grace of God, he got sober in 1941, never had another drink until he died 10 years ago. And we used to talk about that 4 absolutes. But the first time I heard anything about the absolutes, he kept saying to me, you need to work on your purity. I didn't know what purity was, you know. And I said to him, what do you mean I need to work on my purity? He said, that nasty mouth of yours. And now, you know, I'd been sober about 6 months, and I started cleaning up my profanity then. And you might hear me say a little hell or damn, but you don't hear that barnyard talk no more out of me. And so I'm going to try to get by today without doing any of that. I was born down in Union County, North Carolina, on a cotton farm. No alcohol in my family at all. I don't know why I ended up the drunk. There was 7 boys and 1 girl. And the rest of them, none of them don't know how to drink even till today. And was raised on that farm and went to church regularly, a little Methodist church. Now, I want you to know I'm not a Catholic. I want to get that clear before we get started. I went to that little Methodist church down there on the farm, and everything went good. Every time the church doors opened, my mother saw it. We went in and got to church. And my dad was a good man, but he's not a church man. And he raised 6 boys and that 1 girl, and taught us some principles to live by. I'd have been all right. Never would have drank no liquor for it. Certainly would have done in our home. But when that time comes, one would get out of high school and he'd leave home. And then the next one coming along, it's time for him to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, build the fires, and go down and start milking the cows. And when I got big enough to do that, I knew I didn't like that. And I got on a trailway bus and I went to Charlotte. Got over that bus and went down the street there and got me a little room. And I got rid of my blue bib overalls on. Now, folks, that's been over 60 years ago. I ain't never put the blue bib overalls on since then. They look good on everybody else, but I just don't like them. And I went up the street that day and asked the man for a job. And he said, son, I need somebody here. But said you have to be 16 to work here. I didn't even bat an eye. I said, I'm 16 and a half, just lied a year, and, and didn't think nothing about it. And he said, well, my gosh, said, run over here and get your workers permit, told her right where to go, and said, come on back and I'll put you to work at 3 o'clock this evening. I tried it over there, and on the way over there, I kept thinking, now, my mom and daddy told me you don't lie and steal, and here I am, I've done told a lie, and it bothered me. And I went ahead and lied to her, and I got my workers permit, and just started on back down there, and it really was bothering me. It didn't bother me enough to tell the truth. I went to work that evening at 3 o'clock with an old boy named Owen Pruitt, and he was born over here in Paisley. And it might be some of y'all remember when a man fell out of an airplane in 1956 going from Charlotte to Asheville on his 5th honeymoon. Now, that boy had a problem. Took him 5 times, then fell out of the damn airplane. But Pruitt he was a good man. I went to work with Pruitt that day, and everybody, women just crazy about old Pruitt. And that night when they closed the shop, Pruitt said to me, Buck, would you like a drink? I said, man, I sure would. Now, I thought that he was talking about a Pepsi Cola. I didn't know nothing about liquor. And he come back in the kitchen, and he had a pint of whiskey and 2 tumblers and a Coca-Cola. And he took the top off of that bottle and handed it to me, and I didn't know what to do. He said, go ahead and pour you a drink. Well, I poured a tumbler half full of liquor. And he said, don't you want some Coke? I said, no, I drank mine like this. So I never had drank no liquor. And I turned that glass of whiskey up, and I took about 2 swallows. And boy, liquor come out of my ears, nose, and eyes, and it made a mess out of me. And I went on down to my little room at night. One of the cab drivers took me down. It was right across the old Southern Depot there in Charlotte. And the cabs had all lined up along there to pick up people coming in on the train. And so the next day when I got up the next morning, I walked the streets of Charlotte and looked it over, and I went on to go to work, and all the cab drivers out there, and they was kidding me. Yeah, I heard about you taking that drink of liquor last night, and yeah, it was good. It was good to me. They was thinking on me, but that was all right. And so I went to work that day, and at 12 o'clock that night when they closed up, one of the old boys that was working there, he said, Buck, come on ride with me, and said, I'll show you this town. Cab driver. And I said, okay. He made a couple of pickup and delivers, and we pulled in a little place down on Mint Street. Now, there's no liquor stores in North Carolina until 1948. Everything, wettest place you ever been, but there's no liquor store. And we pulled this little place, and I said, what are we going to do here? He said, we're going to get us a drink of liquor. Only thing I learned from my first drink of liquor was you pour a whole lot of Coke and a little bit of liquor. I did learn that much. So I fixed me a drink, and what but a minute, we downed it, and Frank reached over and he got my cup and he filled it full of liquor and just put a little bit of Coke. We downed that, and he said, but he was having fun out of me. See, a little country boy, and I never had been nowhere, and that was all right. But he said, let's go pick up some women. Now, I done had 2 drinks of liquor. I done tackled a damn tiger that night. I said, let's go. And man, away we went. I'd been shot 2 days and had done experienced liquor and women. Neither one of them could have killed me, and almost did. Before I got there. And that ain't too good of water. Hell, I done forgot. My name's Buck Melton. I'm an alcoholic. We would just start over. Oh, yeah, I done experienced liquor and women. And in World War II, began to get along, and they drafted me, and I went in service, and I was a good soldier. I really believe that. And I think most of the time I was afraid to drink the way I wanted to while I was in service. But I wanted to be a good soldier, and I still don't know how we ever won World War II. If I hear these people get up at AA meetings and talk about how drunk they was flying the airplane, and I swear I don't know how we ever won the war, but thank goodness we did. And when the war was over, I ended up in the hospital right downtown in Paris, France. My brother was sending me a carton of cigarettes, and I was getting a carton. and didn't even smoke. Now that's like having gold right in World War II, and right downtown in Paris. So I had all the money I wanted. And orders come through for me. One morning they said, go check in with the outfit. We're going to release your boss with you flying out, going back to the States. Well, I wasn't in no hurry about coming back home. Never been loved. Didn't know what love was. And I was hoping they'd keep me around there. But I went in, instead of going back and checking in and flying home that day, I went down and checked in the hotel. And we sat laid in there and drank this wasn't an alcoholic drink. We just fun drinking for a week. And I said, I'll check in my outfit. Maybe they'll keep me over here about 6 months. And I went in that morning to check in my outfit. And they had me on the plane heading for Fort Bragg at 10 o'clock that morning. Nobody can say nothing about where you been, or they just seemed to be glad to get me on that plane and get me out of there. So I come on home, and my mother and dad still lived down on the farm there. And I went down and spent the night with them, and they went to bed about 8 o'clock with the chickens. But they got up at 4. And Mama got up and fixed a big breakfast and everything, and we had a good break. And I said, well, I'm going to go back to Charlotte and see if I could find me a job. Well, I kind of knew I had a job, and I went on back and I was working with a little canary. Then I walked in the place there, and the man, Ralph White, I bet I knew him. He said, man, are you out of service? I said, yeah, I got it today. He said, I fired a guy a while ago. I said, you did? He said, yeah. Caught him stealing. He said, I want you to go to work. I said, well, I have to get me a room. He said, okay, go ahead and find your room, come on back. And he hired one thief and fired one thief and hired another one that day. I went up there and went to work that evening with that man. And about 8 o'clock, this old long-tired, lanky gal come walking in the door. She kind of turned me off when she came in the door. I thought, damn, that's a good-looking gal. I got talking to her. Sophie, this is the way it happened that night. And so I turned around and she was gone. And I thought, damn, I let her get away from me. And up a little bit, the phone rang, and she said, how about taking me home? I said, okay. I said, where you at? She said, well, you don't even know who this is. I said, yeah, you that old long lanky gal that was in here a minute ago. She said, that's right. I said, where? She said, I'm at home. I said, where you live at? And she told me. I said, I'll be there when I close the shop at midnight. She said, all right. Went up there, and she wouldn't let me in the house. Now, we courted on the swing. Now, folks, that's been over 55 years ago. And that ain't the way to start off no 55-year marriage on the swing. I can tell you that now. But the next day, she come by the place and wanted to know where going out. I said, no, I do a little drinking. And I knew all the bootleggers, all the cab drivers. And I said, I'm going to go out tonight with my buddies and do a little drinking. I'll talk to you later. She said, okay, and she left. But that night when I closed the shop at midnight, I was ready to go do some serious drinking. And I walked out, and she was parked close to me at that table to the front door. And I thought, damn, she must have not heard me. I'm going to step over there and tell her I ain't going to her. And when I started to go over to the car, she had 12 bottles of long legs sitting up on the seat right beside her. And I think I knew I was going to marry that one right then. Beth, I crawled in the way we went. And we had fun. Things went good. A year later, we got married. And we bought us a little house out there. And she got pregnant. Our first daughter come along. And the other year, another child was born. Wasn't making no money, didn't need none. You know, I've always said two people in love the way we were. At that time, all you needed was a mattress and a box of cornflakes, and hell, you was getting along. And we were in love, and things went good. You know, everybody was veterans out in the little neighborhood that we bought in, and we'd get together on Saturday night, buy a quart of liquor, and there'd be 4 or 5 couples get together. You can't get no trouble just taking the dip now and then like that, and I didn't have any trouble. And then I had a chance to go to move to South Carolina, moved over to Lancaster, opened up a motor inn drive-in. And I'm sure some of y'all are going number 9 over there at the Bleacher is a fine restaurant, good-looking restaurant. And things went good. I made more money there the first year there. You know, you take a little old country boy who never had no money, you give him a pocket full of money, damn if you ain't got a problem. I guarantee you. And I just went, wow. My wife was working with me. She could run the business. Back in, we had good help. and she could run the business, take care of it as good as I could. And that gave me time to join all the clubs I wanted to join, do whatever I wanted to do. And I just fell into this thing. That little boy was in the game out at the club there one night, and I kept watching him, but he was watching me. And when the game was over, he said, "Buck," said, "I've been watching you." I said, "You have? I've been watching you too, Bill." He said, "We could get together and we could make some money." I said, "The way you handle them cars," I said, "Well, when you gonna start?" He said, "How about in the morning?" And we just like we were going to the mill. We got together and I got good at it. But I asked him, I said, "Boy, what's your name?" That's all it told me. Something. He said, "They call me Srudy." Now that's a message right there. And he was a little Cajun from down in Louisiana, and he was a good one too. He taught me a lot of good things. And we rambled around, and I used to call it gambling. We wasn't gambling. We just stole. There used to be a place right down here on 501. I've been many nights out there. I walked out of there with my pockets full of money, and you can do very well. And I want to tell you one more. I went back and was. My wife was pregnant with our third child. We was living over in Langston. And so I told him, I said, "Buddy," she had to ask me to come back and start running the place so she'd go home and take care of herself. And I felt terrible. And I told her, I said, "Don't hang around. Don't want to see you no more." And that night I went home and I took a shower and I went to bed. And I tossed and turned all night. Couldn't sleep. And I didn't know what an alcoholic was. And I certainly didn't know that I was an alcoholic. But this is the first time I'd ever decided I was going to quit drinking. And the next morning I got up and I tossed and turned all night. I got up and went out and opened this place up. And man, I couldn't cut it. I was about to go crazy. And didn't know that I needed to drink liquor. But I thought, I'd quit forever. I didn't know I'd drink liquor before it fix me. And I decided, hell, life ain't worth it. I'm going to end it. And I walked back in the stock room with a 38 in my pocket. And there's a quart of gin sitting on the shelf there. And I knocked the top off of that bottle and I drank every swallow I could take. Get down. And you know what? But a few minutes I thought, man, wasn't that the silliest damn thing you ever thought about? And from then till I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I never quit one more time. I ended up, had a brother in this town, give him the place. I put him in business there. He done well. And they had him, bought him a home in Florida and went up in the mountains and run up down the road in that big Cadillac. And I used to look at it and I said, "God, that ought to be mine." And it was mine. I drank it up. And we good friends today. But I resented it. And I'd get me an old service station bill. I'd put a drink box out front and a dice table and a poker table in the back. And that's the way I made my living. And one day the sheriff came out there. Me and him had drank liquor together when I first went to the county. And the court come out there one day and he said, "Buck, we got a federal man in town." I said, "He's looking for people selling liquor." I said, "I know this don't pertain to you," but said, "I just thought I'd tell you about it." About 2 hours later, the sheriff and that federal man back out there, I done sold him 2 jugs. And so, I was having trouble with drinking liquor. And ended up, and I told my wife, I'd got off, I was running one of the clubs there. Y'all don't have to worry now, I'm going to look at my watch. But I forgot what time it started. But when I get ready, when I get done, I'll sit down. You think I'm done where I'm done or not? So it just don't. I ain't gonna run no overtime on it. But I told my wife I was getting off this drunk after I run the club there, and I called them one day and told them I was quitting. They said, "Why?" And I said, "The people hanging out at this club just causing me to stay drunk, and I'm gonna get away from here." They tried to get me to take off 2 months of pay. Said, "Buck, you made us more money than anybody's ever run this club." But when you cut the pot and ceiling too, damn few won't get them a head, sure enough. And I'd done very well for the club. But I told them I was quitting, and I did. I stayed around the house for 2 or 3 weeks, and I told my wife, I said, "If we go down on Main Street and over up at the Ice Restaurant, I want to serve any beer and wine. I won't drink anything. We get all the church people come back doing business with them." And boy, that sounded good to her too. And she said, "God," and she'd saved some of that money that I was throwing away. And she said, let's do it." And we did. Went down and opened up a beautiful little restaurant there. But when you've been in there jail for bootlegging, fighting and drug out of places, and expect the church people to come do business with you, damn people won't starve to death waiting on them. I just didn't do no business. But I ended up first day of October, 1967. I went to open the door and I said, "To hell with it." I hung the lock back in the door and went to the liquor store and started drinking. in Christmas Eve of 1958. I come home, and there's a big van backed up to the house. Well, I knew what was going on. Now, folks, if you don't believe this is a family illness, and I'm sure there's some Al-Anons in here, this affects us all. That van was moved up, and my wife come running out. She said, Buck, I'm not leaving down here, so I got a job in Charlotte. Got us a place to stay, and I'm not leaving you. If you want to go with us, you can go. And I said, well, you got everything loaded, the bed's loaded? And she said, yeah. I said, hell, let's go. I didn't have no place to sleep at night. So we went back to Charlotte, Christmas Eve. And folks, that's not a good time to move, I can tell you that now. Sometime on the 4th of July or Thanksgiving, I see a truck going down the road and furniture tied up all over, and I know what, there's a problem. You can bet on that. Went on back up there, and I thought, now, I'll go down on Monday morning and ask this man for a job. On Monday morning, I couldn't do it. I just knew that he knew that I was drunk, and I wouldn't go ask him. I went out to Diamond Point there, and where all the contractors hung out. And I asked the man for a job there. He said, I'm a brick contractor. I said, you got any work? He said, yeah. So I need a laborer. I said, I'll make you a good one. I said, what are you doing? He said, mixing mortar and hauling brick. And folks, I was a young man then, and I could mix that mortar and I could haul in bricks. But he paid me $1 an hour. Now, that's coming down the road on a fast trip. The year before that, I paid taxes. I mean, taxes on better than $85,000. I ain't counting what I stole. And at $1 an hour, you ain't gonna drink the top shelf there. I'll tell you that. And I'd get off in the evening, go down there, and found out some days they couldn't work. The bricklayers couldn't work. And for 39 cents, I found this is my dope story. For 39 cents, I could buy a little bottle of this terpene hydrate with codeine in it. It gets you downtown in a hurry, I'll guarantee you. And if I don't live much over 100, I hadn't ought to never cough again. But that's a powerful cough, sir. And it done the job for me, so I can't kick it. But then I ended up in... one day he said about a place out there on the boulevard for sale. And he said, man, there's a fellow out there trying to get rid of a little old beer joint. I said, you ought to go out there and look at it. And I went out there, and the man told me what he wanted for it. I said, I'll be back in the morning with the cash. And I know that guy laughed when I walked out there with old buddy boots on and cement all over me, but I had a plan. And I knew this brother I put in business was just dying to help me, and I'd go down there and talk to him, and he'd put me in business. And so I tried to get sober that night, and you can't get sober at 8 hours, right? God, I'd have been better off drunk. But I went on back down there and went in and started telling about a nice place it was. Most of it lies, maybe a little truth. And he said, well, Buck, I hope you get it. I said, damn, you made a mess out of your life. And I said, well, that's the reason I'm down here. I want to borrow the money from you to buy it with you. He said, Buck, anybody made the money you made and threw it away and neglected your family, I wouldn't let you have a damn nickel. All I want to do is get up and get out. So I had hit him when he was hurting. But I got up and started the door, and he said, listen, if you ever decide to do anything about your drinking, he said, I'll put you in any kind of business you want to do. Help you in any way I can. I said, I don't think I'll take another drink of liquor as long as I live. And why I said that, God only knows. And he stopped me. And he pulled out a roll of money. Don't never give a drunk no money, cash. And he started counting it out, and he said, this going to be enough? I said, that'll do it. He said, if you need anything else, call me. I'll get it to you. I said, okay. Now, I was as grateful as any human being could be right then. I had my hands full of money. And I started out in the car, and, between his living room and my car, I thought, boy, I put you in business. You've done well and talked to me that way. The hell with you. And I took some of that cash money, went out and bought me a case of liquor, and I talked about him all the way back to Charlotte. And if I ever needed AA, I needed it, and I'd never heard of it. Went on back out there and got the old Bo Peep and started running it out there. And, man, I was selling some beer. them bootleggers over in Gaston County, they need the outlet. I was happy to and done very well. And then one day I had a chance to go in business for myself. And the man that run the motel there, he come over there one day. He said, "Listen," he watched me. You can tell when somebody watched. He's watching me. I could feel him watching me. And I turned around and he said, "Listen," said I just bought this motel up here beside you. He said, "You look like a good operator." You know, we do operate pretty good from about half the bag sometimes. And he said, "You're a good operator, so I'd like to hire you." I said, "Oh, I got this business going here, and I got a wife and 3 kids." See, I didn't tell you. I took my wife to the hospital on the last year. I was born drunk. She had to get an ambulance. Come on. He said, "We've got nice living quarters and everything." He said, "Talk to your wife, and if you're interested, I'll meet you up. I'll be up there at 8 o'clock in the morning." I said, "Well, I might mention it to her tonight." See, I lay around these motels drunk, and I knew that wasn't no bad deal. When that door closed behind him, I called my wife. The insurance comes up behind. I told her, I said, "Listen, you tell them you won't be there in the morning. We're going to get that job running that motel that day." Sure enough, the next morning we pulled up there, and that man hired me and paid me more than I had ever thought about making in my life. His name was W.S. Lander from over Lincoln, the finest man I ever knew. And I run that motel for 4 years for him, and every time he come out there, he'd come out twice a year. And every time he come out there, I knew he'd come to fire me. Scared to death. Well, I was staying drunk all the time, but I was making so much money he couldn't fire me. I know that now. I didn't know it back then. But he was a good man. I ended up and got back in business for myself, and that's when I met an old boy and got an AA, and his name was Percy Barker. Percy's dead today. And so one day, got to missing Percy. We down behind the old red barn out there, and the police ain't gonna come up and get no cuckleberries on them. You go out behind that red barn and stay. You can stay out there and die. They'd probably just bury you. There ain't nobody gonna come looking for you behind the red barn, I guarantee you. And so we go up there and drink and just lay around. And one day Percy didn't show up, and I said, "Well, wonder where's Percy at?" Next day, somebody said, "Wonder where's old Percy at?" Hell, we weren't gonna spend a dime to call Percy. We just wondered about him, you know. And so, so one morning I was sitting out there, and I saw this shiny car coming in, and I thought, "Man, something's wrong. It's a clean car, and the guy got out, and his shoes was shine." And I thought, some dude's in the wrong place. He turned around, it was Percy. And he said, "Buck, you got any coffee?" I said, "Yeah." "I got some instants in there." He said, I'd like to have some, so I want to talk to you." So we went on in. I poured me another drink of liquor. Now, I was drunk at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I poured him, making him some coffee, and I poured me another drink. He said, "Buck, I know some people can help you." I said, "What are you talking about, Percy?" He said, "You're going to lose this little deal you got going here. You're going to lose that wife and those 3 kids." And said, "These people can help you." Well, I thought he'd met a banker, you know. That's who I needed right there. And I said, "Percy, who are you talking about?" He said, "It's a group called Alcoholics Anonymous." Now, I know I had heard something about that, but that's the first time I'd ever registered. Now, he put a damn booger on me, folks. I can tell you now. And I told Percy, I said, "You go to hell." So I know I'd heard something about AA. And he started the door, and he turned around and he said, "Buck, if you ever decide to do anything about your drinking, call AA." So we listened to the telephone book. And he walked out. Friday night, if I could have got him to come down to my treatment center, I would have loved to talk to him. Well, my treatment center was Mecklenburg County Jail. And and I was down there Friday night, and I got thinking, man, why didn't I find out something about that AA deal? And he put a booger on me, and from then till about 10 months later, every weekend I'd think about Percy, and my pride wouldn't let me call him. So one day there's a girl that was working there. They coming on down toward the end, folks. Girl was working there, and she missed the bus, and I told my wife, I said, "I'm going to run Luella home." Now, I was drinking every day, but I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm on 52, in a little place just before you get to the North Carolina line. And I'd heard about this. There's a big game going on in the house over there. And so I go over there that morning, September 21st, 1967. And I started back in the big house, and the man stopped me. He said, where do you think you're going? I said, I'm going back here to the big game. He said, we don't allow strangers now. You get on back in here. And so I asked him if he'd like to have a little drink of that 100 proof Smirnoff, and he said, yeah. And I got over on the table. We shot a few games, and I was talking 100 mile an hour. You know, we know how to work on these, get ourselves in places. And I was talking 100 mile an hour, and after a while I said, you ready for another drink? He said, yeah. Poured him another big drink, and I waited. I knew the time was right. I said, do you think I'm going to get back now? He said, oh, hell, but go on back there. I know you. So sometimes the juice works. And so far as I know, I went back there, and I was talking to myself. And the man might be in here today. God, I don't know. That's been a long time ago. But he come in and laid a little 32 up on the table. Said, this is going to be an honest game. You know what I thought? I'll get your money and get you the hell out of here with that gun pretty quick, and I did. And his game didn't last long, but I remember the last drink of liquor. I think I turned that glass of whiskey and I drank it down, and I blacked out, which I've been blacking out since they come out with them things. And I don't remember leaving that place. I drove 75 or 80 miles back down on Water Reed, and when I come to down on the Pine Woods there on Water Reed, I was scared to death. I had my pockets full of money, my shirt full of money, and didn't even remember leaving the place. And that night I got on my knees and I prayed to a God that I knew about and asked him to help straighten my life out. That's the first sincere prayer I'd said in a long time. Except, now, I'd said a lot of sincere prayers when I was in jail. I hear people say they never prayed. If you ain't never been in them damn jails that I've been in, you pray. I'd pray to get out, but I'd forget about it. And when I'd get out, I'd think, well, I was going to get out anyway. You know, I never. Sooner or later, they'd let me out. But that night, I said a sincere prayer. And the next morning, I got up and I drove back to Charlotte. Been gone 2 weeks then, and I walked in. And I didn't thought of an alibi to tell my wife where I'd been. She always wanted to know where you been, who you been with, what you been doing. And most of the time, really, I didn't even know myself. But she didn't say anything. I walked in, she said, good morning. I didn't know that God had been in our house before I got there. Wasn't no fuss or nothing. We talked a little bit. And I wasn't about to tell her I was going to do something about my drinking, you know. And after all, she went in the other room and I opened the telephone book up and I called Alcoholics Anonymous. A little lady named Betty Brown said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I want to do something about my drinking. She said, can I send somebody out? I said, oh my God, no. The only thing I can think of is I must have thought that they might think I was an alcoholic if they come out there, you know. And I said, is there not some place I can come? And she said, yeah, 709 East Boulevard. Said, there'll be somebody here to talk to you. I said, see you in a little bit. I got in the car and went down there, walked in, and she said, I want you to meet Jim. But when I got to the door, she said, well, you must be Buck. And I thought, well, how did she recognize me, you know? And she said, I just told her I'd been drunk for 2 weeks. She could have seen me a mile away, you know. And so, but she said, I want you to meet Jim. And Jim said, you want to go to a meeting tonight? And I said, if that's what you do to quit drinking, I guess I do. He said, you be here at 7 o'clock out front at 7 o'clock tonight, and I'll pick you up. And we'll go to a meeting. And he thumped a dime down and said, give him a cup of coffee. And he walked out, and I thought it was cold, and still do. But I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to drink that day. I went home that evening, and I stayed at the house, took me a shower, and put on clean clothes, the best I had. And I went down to the club and parked out front there at 7 o'clock. And Jim pulled up in that big Chrysler, and he said, come on, get in. I thought, oh. I told you I done hitchhiked back to Myrtle Beach, rode buses and everything, and I sure as hell wasn't going off somebody to AA meeting that I didn't know, a stranger. And I told him, I said, I'll follow you. And so I followed him over to the Queen City group, and I know some of you knew Irvin Hank. He was running the biggest funeral home in Charlotte back in those days, and Hank used to eat with me, and I saw him standing out there when we pulled up. And I thought, my God, I'm sick, but if they got an undertaker out here, they got about 6 people coming into this place today. and Hank saw me, and he recognized me, and he come trotting over there with a hand out. And he said, Buck, and I'm Hank, Irvin Hank, and I'm an alcoholic. And I thought, hooray for you. But, I didn't say that. I was just glad to see somebody that I knew around there. And the old smart aleck with me and Hank was talking, Red Irvin come up there and he said, "We got a new one tonight, Hank." And Hank said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "That car, that windows all broke out of it. We got a new one." Hell, that's my car, you know. And but I went on in and I listened to a man talk that night. John Hoppy talk, best AA talk I ever heard. Man, he got up there and told all the things that I'd been doing, like he knew everything I'd done. He'd done, and that's about the truth. We can identify with other people. And when John sat down, everybody clapped, and I thought, you know, I've done all he done, but damn, if I get a poor group of people and tell about it, and I've been doing it ever since then. And then when they give out the chips, so if anybody has a desire to quit drinking liquor, come up and get this desire chip. I got one, and by God's grace, I've never had to go back and get another. I got busy. Little man sitting over there, a lot of y'all knew Harry D. And he had on a loud clothes, yellow sport coat with black stripes on it. I thought it was women's shoes, patent leather shoes, snapped that. He had a breeze good that night, and old Harry looked cool. And when the meeting was over there, he come over and put his arm around me. He said, "I'm a Harry Barrett. I'm an alcoholic." Now, these been people all day, and I ain't recognized. He said, and I said, "Well, I'm Buck Melton," and I picked up that desire chip on again. And Harry looked me right in the eye, and he said, "Buck, I love you." I looked down to see if I was unzipped. I said, "Oh, God, I got to get away from Harry." You know, 33 years later, Harry's still standing at that door. He died 2 years ago now. Stand at that door, and every new drunk that come in, Harry told him he loved him. And thank God for that. Another boy was back there, he said, "You sick, aren't you, boy?" I said, "Man, you don't know?" He said, "Yes, I do. And if you want to get well, you stay here with us, and we'll show you how." He said, "You got any money on you?" He didn't ask me if it's stole or not. I said, "Yeah, I got money." He said, "Go over and buy you a big book, $4 a half. It might be the best investment you ever made in your life." I believe it is. And I got that big book. And he said, "I'm going to ask you something else." I said, "Okay." "When did you have your last drink?" I told him. He said, "If you ever take another drink of liquor as long as you live, it'll be because you'd rather be drunk than to be sober." I said, "Now, how do you figure that?" He said, "Well, all we do is one day at a time. You've already gone 24 hours, so you don't ever have to take another drink of liquor as long as you live." Now, that'll put a damn thinker on you, I can tell you that. And I had me a big book, and I had about 5 or 6 of Harry's telephone cards, and had 3 or 4 telephone numbers. And I took that big book, and I headed for home, scared to death. Didn't want, you know, I was proud that I'd found a bunch of people that I was sober with. But then I went in, and there was my wife and 3 kids. I couldn't tell them I'd joined Alcoholics Anonymous. Went in and dropped my big book in the clothes hamper, and I thought they were sitting up there waiting on me. Hell, it wasn't a few minutes, they all went to bed. I just got my big book, went in the bathroom and pulled the big light on, and I sat there and read that big book. Read it that night over to Bill's story. And by the time I got there, I knew that I was an alcoholic. I knew my life was in there. There was no doubt in my mind about that step. And I think I took those first 3 steps down in the woods that night and didn't know what I'd done. But this program has worked. Now, you know, I ain't got time and I ain't going to do it no way. It's quitting time in a little bit. But this program has worked. To me, it's all wrapped up in trust God, clean house, and help others. That takes care of you, 12 steps right there. You know, we do them individually, but that's the whole program for me is trust God, clean house, and help others. And if you read your 12 steps, it takes care of the whole thing if you do that. And so I started going then. I was going to some AA meetings now. Wasn't telling my wife and kids where I was going, but I was going every night. Been going about 3 weeks, and she said, I said, "I'll see you about 9:30, 10. She said, "Well, I want to go with you." I said, "Come on." I said, "Oh, hell, I done played hell now. She'll go there. I'm sober. I love the people, and ain't having no trouble, and she'll go over and screw the whole deal up." That's right. That's how good we was getting along there. But we got over there, and nobody ever said nothing to me about Al-Anon. But I said that night, I'm going to get me a sponsor tonight. See, everybody thought I had a sponsor. Man, come with me. He'd gone. I never had to sing anymore. And so, went in that night, and we went, and the women all went downstairs. And so I told her, I said, "They meet down there." I didn't know who they were. But she went down them steps, as I understand it right, she got down there and they cut them lights down low, and they killed that damn goat, and that woman ain't ever been the same since then. And I just love her to death. We've had 34 beautiful years. Now I ain't saying that, but we still fuss and fight. Hell, if you don't fuss and fight, you ain't got no making up time. So we've had but it's been a good life. I got 3 daughters all on their own, and raised them, and they've done good in spite of us. But I got busy going to AA. This is the most important thing in my life. Without it, I wouldn't have anything. And I think as long as I practice the principles and the 12 steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, everything else is going to fall in place. I believe that. And so I've had a good life. And I want to tell you one little story about my granddaughter. She just was married a month ago. When she was about 3 years old, she said, "Pop," said, "I want to go to one of them meetings with you." I said, "Come on, Rachel, we'll go tonight." So I took her over to the meeting. I got up on the front row. And I said, "Now you sit up on this front row, and I don't want you looking around, doing nothing. You listen." She said, "Okay." And she did. And when the meeting was over, the girls all come over and got her some cookies and told her how nice she was. And we got ready to go. And her mama told her, said, "You better not take her, you'll have trouble." I said, "No, I ain't no trouble." And so we started home, and I said, "Rachel, you done real good. I'm proud of you." She said, "Well, when you get home, I want you to tell Mama that." I said, "Okay." So she started going to Al-Anon with her grandmother and AA meetings with me. And so when she was about 6, I think it was, she said, one day said, they come over and her and her mama and her grandma were going to Christmas shopping. I said, "Rachel, why don't you stay here with me and let them go get their shopping done?" She said, "Pop, I'd like that." So they got gone, and she said, "Pop, let's have a meeting." Now, she'd been going to meet me for 3 years. She said, "Let's have a meeting." I said, "What kind of meeting do you want to have, Ray?" She said, "Oh, AA meeting." I said, "Okay." She said, "Now, we're going to pretend we're talking in this big room and a lot of people back there." I said, "Okay." She said, "Now, we're going to make out like a meeting's over." I said, "Now, you offer the chip." No, she first told me, said, "I want you to introduce yourself." I said, "My name's Buck." She said, "Are you alcoholic?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, you have to tell them you're alcoholic." and then she wanted me to offer the chips. I said, "The white chip again. How about a red chip?" She said, "Wait a minute, Pop. Way back in the room there, here comes a lady to get a white chip." The greatest imagination, you couldn't believe it. And somebody got each one of the chips. And she said, "Now we close this meeting. We have to pray. And if you want refreshments after we pray, you go in the kitchen. If you don't, just go on home." I said, "That kid's been listening closer than I have to these AA meetings." But she had a good life, and when she got about 15 or 16, she found out about boys. And that she quit going to meetings with me. And she told me one night, said, "Pop," said, I don't think I'm going to be going to meetings with you anymore." I said, "That's all right, Rachel." So she went down to East Carolina, got a good education, and she met this guy down there, and they got married a month ago. Beautiful wedding, and they're doing good. And in spite of Grandma and Grandpa and all the things in her life, that it's good to see your kids do good. And I've been real proud of her. And some of y'all knew Leo, that's from down at Myrtle Beach, and Leo was a good man. And I met him when he first got sober. And Leo told me, said, "I want to talk to you." I said, "Okay." So I come up one day and I had a little folder. I said, "Leo, what you got?" He said, "I got an inventory." I said, "Well, son, he's been sober about 3 months. I said, "You getting on with it, isn't you?" He said, "Well," said, "Show inventory." That'll get your attention, I guarantee you. I said, "You ought to be working on yours." You can tell I wasn't too happy with him working on mine. He said, "Buck, said, I've been watching you. When you want somebody to help you run your life, you're going to ask them to sponsor you. You need to know something about them." And that made it all right. And for the next 21 years, we run together. And I guess I was as close to him as anybody. And when he got sick, I spent a lot of time down there with him. And he said, one day he said, told Janice Virginia, said, y'all get out here, we want to talk. He said, what's going to happen to me, brother? I said, Leo, you got cancer, you're going to die. He said, well, I know that, but said, I mean, where am I going? I said, man, I don't know. But it's got to be a good place. I said, but Leo, you've helped a lot of people, and you've done a good job in AA. And wherever you're going, it's going to be all right. He said, how you know that? I said, well, I'll tell you one thing. Ain't nobody ever come back and complained. The damn be it, Leo. I thought that boy would jump out of that bed. He laughed and just carried on, and that was on a Wednesday. I went off for the weekend, come back, and Leo had died. And so he was a good man. He's good for AA in South Carolina, too. He really was. And, you know, we're here on the 67th anniversary of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's been a beautiful trip for me. I got to meet Bill. Bob went on before I got sober. Hell, I was just drinking liquor good when he died, but I got to meet Bill once. And we owe a debt to Alcoholics Anonymous, as long as we're breathing, to carry this message on to the ones who still suffer. And when I go before my Maker, and I believe this is a gift that God gives us all, and He says, what did you do with that gift of sobriety I give you? I hope I can say I passed it on. Thank you all.